Thank you, Governor Schwarzenegger. As everybody in the room has noticed, it is hot up here and it is hot in the room. And this is the moment where I usually get to ask you a handful of questions, but I think the room deserves to get the questions they have. I can feel that there are many in the rooms, and you've talked about public service, you've talked about giving back in your career, and I'd like to almost immediately hand the privilege of asking the questions over to all of those who have joined us here today. So if somebody has already gotten their question lined up, just raise your hand. So we have a microphone that will come around, and let's take them 2 by 2 maybe, and wherever the microphone is, let's see. Then just whoever is closest to you, you can...
Governance post? The governance post?
Yeah, or whoever the microphone has, just... And please introduce yourself before you ask your question.
Okay. First of all, Mr. Governor, thank you so much for your time for coming here. My name is Henry. I'm a first-year MIA student here at Hertie. I was a former resident of California. I lived in Palm Springs for my high school years, hold very fond memories of it. And my question is actually related to civic education. One of the organizations I hold very dearly, Junior State of America, which is actually an California organization, got shut down this year because of the pandemic. I learned some very important lessons of civic education from that institution. And we're seeing many organizations as such are closing down in the United States, and the lack of the civic education, civic engagement of the youth people. As a champion of voting rights, as Schwarzenegger Institute in USC also covers about the voting rights, what do you think what we should do as a society, what we should do on a local level, on a state level, to increase the engagement of the youth participation in our democracy? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question. I think it's extremely important if you want anything to be successful, you have to go and make it happen. You can't wait around and let other people do it. I remember when I was in the legislature, when I was a governor, and I was working with the legislators, and I saw that there was a problem that Republicans couldn't really make a decision on things, and Democrats couldn't, or they were scared of a decision, whatever it was that was good for the people. And I realized that it had something to do with redistricting, how the district lines were drawn. So some had districts where there was just Republicans in there, some there were districts where a majority of Democrats were in there. So if a Democrat would go and do something that is in the center, he was taken out by someone that was much more to the left. And if a Republican would go a little bit to the center, then he would be taken out by someone that is much more to the right. So nothing got really done. So then I decided that to do redistricting reform. Now everyone looked at me and says, what the hell are you talking about? What is redistricting? What is gerrymandering? Because there's a system in America that's set up to fix the political system through gerrymandering. So I said, we got to get rid of gerrymandering in California. And you know something, we put it on a ballot, and I campaigned, I raised money for it, we lost. Put it on a ballot again, we campaigned up and down the state, and we lost again. Then the press asked me at the press conference, they says, Governor, don't you get this, the point that people don't like it? They don't want to deal with it? I said, no. I said, in bodybuilding and in weightlifting, I tried 9 times to bench press 500 pounds. I failed every time. But the 10th time, at the German powerlifting meet, I was like 20 years old. I did it. So I said, to me, there is no such thing as giving up. I will go and I would do it over and over again until we get it done. And sure enough, the 3rd time when it came around, we got it done. And now we have redistricting reform, and now Democrats and Republicans work much better together, even though I'm out of office, so it didn't benefit me. But now, because of that, the Democrats and Republicans work much better together. And because of that, the approval rating went from 18% to 48%. See what I'm saying? But I took the initiative. I didn't wait for anyone else. And even when they said this has been around for more than 100 years and all that stuff, I didn't pay any attention. Like I said earlier, I don't pay attention to the naysayers. And so we did it. So So we made an impact, and this is what you have to do. You have to go out there, you have to create an organization, you have to go and rally people up, you have to go and create volunteers, and you have to go out and make sure that your voices are being heard, and that you do protests, you march down Hollywood Boulevard, or wherever you are, and you create, just like I've seen in Toronto. I was filming in Toronto my TV series Fuba, and there was various different protests. And I like that because people pay attention to protests. It's not violent protests. It's not disturbing any peace for anyone, but to just have 100 people walking down the street with drums and with loudspeakers and talking about vote. Vote. The main election is coming up. The future of our country is at stake. Vote. Go out and vote. So that's an easy message to do. Doing redistricting reform is much more difficult, trust me. All right?
Thank you. I have one question all the way in the back, and then I see the mic's already up here.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Nicholas. It's a privilege to address this panel today. I study public policy at the school, and I also represent the journalism team, so thank you very much for this courtesy. My question ties in with your last ending here on go vote and take matters into your own hand. Recent election polls in Europe, and also, in fact, right here in Germany, in Saxony and Thuringia, shows that there's an increased popularity of populist narratives amongst young men. And this might possibly be fueled by narratives of status loss, or perceived status loss at least. You've always championed personal responsibility and a commitment to excellence, and therefore my question is, what advice can you give to young people today who increasingly feel left behind, face narratives of crisis and uncertainty, and have this increased exposure to radical political influences and authoritarian regimes across Europe? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Of course, there's a long, long answer, but I mean, the simple answer is that you have to always ask yourself, what do you do? I mean, I can only be left behind if I leave myself behind. I never felt left behind, even though I grew up my parents had no money. I was not able to go skiing or to do anything that my friends were able to do. I started bodybuilding. I didn't have the machines that others had. I had basic equipment that was rusty. I jumped up on a chin-up bar in my bodybuilding, or I should say weightlifting gym, and I got stuck with my hands when it was freezing cold temperatures. It was dirty, but I never felt left behind. I always felt kind of like I was in charge of myself. And I think that what we have to make people aware of is that you have a lot of power. You can make decisions to improve, to get stronger, to get more energetic, to get smarter. You know, this, as I always say, we sleep 6 hours a day. Now, there's some people maybe that sleep longer. You know, I think then you should just sleep faster. But I usually sleep 6 hours a day. The rest of it is a waste of time. Now, I understand that the studies have 2 daughters, and I had a wife for 25 years, so I know that women sleep a little longer than men. But they're much better in multitasking than men. So, I mean, you know, everyone has different needs. But the bottom line is, you sleep 6 hours, so you have 18 hours left. You go to work for 10 hours, now you have 8 hours left to improve yourself, to get stronger, to get smarter, to learn an instrument, to read a book, and all of this stuff. So, I mean, I don't even know how you can be left behind when you work on yourself. I mean, people sometimes are thinking too much about what can others do for you. I'm not one of those people. I see people going to a political convention and they're overweight. And they demand with a sign that government should do health care. So I want to say to that person, what do you do for your health care? You're overweight. What do you do? Before you go somewhere else, we have now through our app, the Pump Club, there was a guy that weighed 400 pounds. Now he weighs 250. Within a few months, he lost 150 pounds. That guy did not ask government for health care. He did not ask anyone else or blame anyone else for leaving him behind in the fitness movement. He woke up one day and says, you know something, and maybe because of our app and because of our fitness letter, we kind of spoke a language that motivated him. Whatever it was, I just mentioned him because I literally just ran into him in the Wiesel Hotel in Graz. There he was with his family, weighing 250 pounds. He used to weigh 400 pounds. So to me, I mean, that's really what is so interesting, is the power that we have over ourselves. Yeah, to me, there's debates today in America about student loans. Who should pay for it? Should students have to pay it off, or should government pay it off, or what? Do you know something? I have a college degree. It took me 8 years to get my college degree. 8 years. Because I was training 5 hours a day. I was working 5, 6, 7 hours a day, construction jobs. And I was going to school, to community college, but I had a student visa, so I had to pay out-of-state tuition. So for every dollar that I paid for my education, right then and there, no loan, I had to work first. I worked, then I paid for it. That's how I moved along. And eventually, after 8 years, I got my degree in business. You see what I'm saying? I didn't wait for government to pay for my education. So I don't know what kids talk about. You know, when you study, you have plenty of time to pay for your education and to go to work. As a waiter or something, they all need work. People are all asking. In Germany, in Austria, everywhere I go, in America, they say, we cannot find workers. Imagine if the students would unleash and would go out there and work and then study, because we have 24 hours. So this is just my way of thinking. It's maybe a little radical, I admit it, but it's one way of thinking. Okay, so this just, don't worry about, tell the young kids out there, there's only one that can leave them behind, it's they themselves. All right? Thank you.
One question here and then one up in the front after.
Servus, Herr Governor. I am Ian Nevin. I'm originally from California. I was born in Santa Rosa, born and raised. I lived through the Tubbs Fire and the Kincaid Fire, which were two of the most horrific experiences I've ever gone through in my entire life. And one of the things that you did as governor was, after one of the worst wildfires that California experienced in 2008, is you went around to the communities that were affected and you tried to help people as much as you can. Wildfires are a permanent part of California, and as your resident, I know that you are scared of them. We all are. We might lose our homes, we might lose our families. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. So my question to you is, what do you think California, and by extension the rest of the world, should do in preparation for climate disasters? Because they're only going to get worse as we continue to neglect actually addressing climate change.
Well, first of all, I already said that we have to get off fossil fuels in order to really kind of reverse that. And I think Germany made great progress in reducing greenhouse gases. We in California made great progress in that, but there's other countries that are still falling behind. So we just have to inspire them to make sure that they're with the program. And they understand that too many people are dying and there is climate change, and we see it with the weather today, the floods that we see, the violence in the weather, the fires and all of those things. So there's that issue. California is a special issue on top of that. number one, we don't have always the infrastructure and the kind of equipment to fight those fires. So I laid out, when I was governor, a program to go and to create this kind of equipment over the years. More helicopters, more airplanes to dump fire retardant and dump water and all this stuff, and to be much quicker with our deployment. We sometimes have, when I was governor, one day I went to bed and we had 285 fires in California. So I was like, oh my God, 285 fires. When I woke up, we had 2,012 fires. So think about that problem. And of course, we did not have the equipment. So that's why it was very important to get the equipment as quickly as possible and to be able to fight those fires and to get the manpower, up to the budget for the fire department and all of that stuff. But we in California have an additional problem, and this is our power lines are not buried. So a lot of the fires are started because power lines are coming down and create the fire. And so we have to go to do everything we can as quickly as possible to bury, like they do in Europe, to bury those power lines, so not to expose them. So that's another challenge that is specifically in California and not in another, and in a lot of third world countries also, but not maybe in Europe. All right?
Thank you. Question up in the front.
Thank you very much. My name is Kaya. I'm an alumni of the first class of the Hertie School from 2007. I today work with SOS Children's Villages that were founded in Austria. And we are starting a global program for the kids who grow up in our villages around the world, especially in the global south. It's called Eco Champions. And it's making these kids who are the most vulnerable in climate change champions in the actions they are taking. And I want to ask you if you will join this program with us and celebrate the first cohort of Eco Champions next year with us.
Well, you have to get in touch with our people, but there's Monica Langthaler here who is running my action initiative, the climate initiative out of Vienna, and you just get in touch with her, okay, and to work it out. All right? Absolutely. And I'm very happy that you're giving something back to the community. I think it's a very, very good cause. Congratulations.
Governor Schwarzenegger, I'm Anja Welaschuk. I'm the international editor at the newspaper Tagesspiegel. Last year, you confirmed that you feel at home in the GOP. And I wanted to ask you... I
confirmed what?
You confirmed that you still feel at home in the Republican Party. And I wanted to ask you if you still feel the same, since your party once more nominated someone who doesn't exactly embody the values that you were lauded for today, and who left the Paris Agreement during his first presidency. So I wanted to ask you, do you still feel at home in your party today, and where do you see the party headed, especially on climate policy?
Well, another very good question. But I am a Republican. So it saddens me when I see the party not operating the same way as the traditional Republican Party operated, which was a party that was inclusive. Remember, President Lincoln fought for blacks to have equality and to have the voting rights, all of this stuff that the Democrats in those days voted against, and the Republicans voted for. President Nixon created the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as a Republican in Washington. President Reagan, when he was governor, as a Republican, created the Air Resources Board that I used as governor to my advantage to create policies and let the Air Resources Board follow through with it So we're creating the kind of lowering of greenhouse gases by 25% and upping our renewable energy from 19% to 50%. So all of this was done with the Republican philosophy. So there are endless amount of examples way back to Teddy Roosevelt that put more land aside for conservation as a Republican. So the party went off, and the party is today a little different. But it doesn't mean that I don't feel really comfortable with my Republican philosophy. It's like if you believe in God, then it doesn't really matter what the Catholic Church does, or if there's corruption there, whatever it may be in a religion, you always will believe in God. And so the same is with me. I always will believe in the Republican principles, and I will do everything in my power to bring the party back again where it used to be. That's the bottom line, all right?
Thank you. We had 2 mics in competition. Now you can ask.
Sorry about that.
No,
Mr. Schwarzenegger, one of the reasons you were given this honorary doctorate is because of evidence-based decision-making across party lines. So what I wanted to ask is, how can we have cross-party interactions between Democrats and Republicans in good faith when people talk about things such as pet-eating immigrants?
Well, you have to understand that I got my stuff accomplished as governor because I worked together with Democrats and Republicans. I did not look at the Democrats as an evil party. I never looked at anyone in the legislature as an evil person. I respected them exactly the same way as I respected the Republicans. Because they were human beings and they had their own beliefs. Why would I, if someone says, I love black cars, and I say, I like yellow cars, why would I hate that person? That's not my style. So, you know, I may try a car with different color, but we don't have to fight over it and accuse each other of all kinds of things. So to me, when one person is out there and saying stuff like that about eating animals and all this stuff, it's one person. I may not agree with him, but so be it. So that's, I think what we have to do is we have to kind of like look at each other in a different way. Just because someone is different, or someone is a different color, or someone is a different religion, or someone is a different party, or someone is extreme, that doesn't mean we should just brush him aside. We should go and understand that person, and we should go and understand that they may be totally wrong. I mean, there was no one eating cats and dogs, right? So, I mean, it's like, so he's totally wrong. But I mean, so what? Let him entertain us. Let him go around and give speeches about cats and dogs. You know, hopefully join some kind of an organization where he protects cats and dogs. I don't know. But, you know, I just look at those things differently. People get really wound up and they say, this is outrageous. And blah, blah, blah. Hey, live and let's live.
It did create a difficult time for the authorities in Springfield, Ohio, but I think they're through with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was funny, actually, huh? When they asked the authorities in Ohio if, in fact, there were any dogs or cats missing, and they said no. There was no incident of anyone ever having any animal missing. So I thought that was funny. And but I mean, you can look at things also, you can look at things in a very dramatic way. You can look at things in the sad way. And you can look at it as in a humorous way. I look at it in all three ways when I hear things like that.
Thank you. I don't know where the mic is. I see one hand on the left where we haven't been, so, or my left, your right, all the way this way.
I'm speaking to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay.
Where are you from?
From India, huge fan, sir. About climate finance. Where will the money come from, do you think? Governments are cash-strained, and the private sector has to come in, is what the experts are saying. How do you think will it happen, and will you be back in Germany?
I'm back, I'm here. But I think that the best thing is when we have a good partnership between the public sector, the private sector, and the non-profit sector. When those three work together, we can perform miracles. And I think the important thing also is to solve problems. There's no way that you really effectively can solve problems if you only use half of the brain power. So when Democrats are running the country, they only hire Democrats. When Republicans run the country, they only appoint Republicans. Now, how stupid is that? I mean, I was a Republican, and I hired Democrats because I felt there were certain Democrats that were smarter in certain areas than Republicans. I wanted to have the brain power of the 100% of California. When I appointed judges as governor, I always told them, I said, don't give me the D and the R in front. I don't want to know if they're Republican or Democrat. I want to just look at their qualification. What school do they have? What practice do they have? What kind of experience do they have? And based on that, I chose who will be a judge. Now, because of that, I happen to appoint more women judges than any other governor in history. Because I told him I don't want to read that. Women, man, black, white, Spanish, this, that, Chinese. I don't want to hear it. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, I don't want to hear any of that. I said, it's all nonsense. And so I appointed, and the Democrats were not happy with that, by the way, that the Republican appointed more women as judges than they did, and that I appointed more blacks than they did. Ooh, they didn't settle well with them. They were jealous of that. But that's good, because remember, competition creates performance. And so, you know, I had a really great record because of that, but I just tried to take all of this out of the way. And I always believe in working together. Working together. That is the most important thing. Because remember, I was married to a Democrat. I mean, think about that. A Republican is marrying a Kennedy. When I married Maria, they said, how could he marry a Democrat? I said, because in bed we don't talk politics. Yeah, I disagreed with her on a lot of things, and she disagreed with me on a lot of things, but we loved each other. We had a strong love for one another, and even today, even though we are divorced, but we have a strong love for each other and an unbelievable respect, and we are so proud the way we raised our kids. We never fought about raising the kids because it was understood that I was the one with the discipline. So I took care of the discipline. They get up on time, that they wash their own clothes, that they wash the sheets in the bed, that they scrub their own shower. And all of that stuff I was in charge of, that they take them skiing, that there will be no hot chocolate after 2 runs. We were grinding it out for 3 hours straight, up and down, up and down. And they were complaining and they were crying, but the day they thanked me. Thank you, Dad, you made us ski hours after hours after hours. The day they thanked me. But so what I'm saying is that we raised our kids unbelievable. Some of them are Republicans, they're voting Republicans, they say it openly at home, and some of them vote Democrat. So that's what it is. But it's just, I think that's the key thing, is not to look at the other side or someone that just thinks differently, that they're always bad. They're not. They can be good people, but they just think differently than you do. That's it.
I'll take one final question up in the front, and then we will close the question and answer
I feel bad,
session.
sorry. Mr. Schwarzenegger, my name is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm a former athlete, and first of all, I find it really impressive what you achieved in your life, not just as an athlete, governor, and whatsoever. My question is, you mentioned a couple of times the importance of the people in your life, beginning with your parents and other mentors. What do you say to people who do not really have a supportive network? How do you find the right people in your life who support you and who help you to grow into a person you want to be?
Well, I tell you that I never had a problem with that, because I let people know that I need help. So when you let people know that you need help, they will help you. I was in a gym and I said, look, I cannot do this bench press by myself, because if I fail, the bar is going to roll on my throat and I'm going to be dead in a few minutes. I need your help. I need you to stand behind me and help me in case I cannot make it. And by the very fact that this person stood behind me, I looked back and I said to myself, I better do an extra rep or two to show off. So I was getting energized. And then I said to him, I said, do you want to be my training partner? And they said, yeah, I don't have anybody. And we became training partners. And we inspired each other. Who can do more chin-ups? Who can do more sit-ups? Who can do more reps in the squats and in deadlift and all of this stuff? And then born was the idea of having a training partner. I believe that you cannot get fit by yourself. You have to have a training partner, because the mind, the human mind, we are company queens. It's just that simple. We don't like to go for dinner alone. We don't like to go to a soccer game alone. We don't like to watch television alone. We like to do things with people. With a pal. Or let's invite some girls over. Let's invite some friends over. Let's get together with the parents over the weekend and let's watch the football games with them. It's always together. Let's have a steak, a cookout or something. Whatever it is, we'd like to do things together, and the same is with training. And so as soon as you put that out there, people then come around and they will give you advice. And then as soon as they give you advice, and instead of just saying, hey, what do you know? Which is the typical thing we do over here, right? Was warst denn du, Depp? But I always said, wow. I had this guy, Freddy Gerstel, this Jewish guy that helped us kind of grow up. He was kind of the opposite of my father. My father was kind of the military guy, and he was kind of more the kinder guy and more tolerant guy. So he was like fantastic. And he was always teaching us about something. And one day he said to me, Arnold, I want you to walk around with the book of Plato. I don't want you just to walk around with big muscles. I want you to walk around someone that studied Plato. And I said, what the hell is he talking about? I was 16 years old, right? But then when I was like 25 and 28 and 30, it all made sense. It always then came back. He says what he was saying was, because he was Jewish, that they took throughout the history everything from them. But the only thing they couldn't take was their intelligence, their mind. So therefore, the Jewish people started concentrating on becoming lawyers and doctors and businessmen and all of that. And so he was telling me that story, and it didn't make any sense to me at all when I was 16. But then later on, when I was like 28 and 30, all of a sudden it made sense. I say, he wanted me to be smart. He didn't care about Plato. He just wanted me to be smart. And that's why I went to college and I studied. And I educated myself. And I started reading, even though as a kid I hated it. And I started doing it because he said so. And so there was mentors like that. They were very, very helpful, but you just have to let people know. I remember when I met Nelson Mandela, and he and I toured South Africa to promote Special Olympics. And to make everyone understand, because the way he felt, so we lit the torch of hope, the light of hope, in his prison cell. I mean, think about that. We lit it there in his prison cell, took it out to the 150 Special Olympians that were out there, and he was saying, those people are prejudiced against them because they are intellectually challenged, just like they were because we were black. So that's why I can relate to that, he said. So, then I was on a bus with him going to the next city, and I said to him, tell me about this forgiveness thing. I said, when you became president of South Africa, you said, okay, they tortured us, okay, they put us in prison, and they suppressed us, and all of those things. How can you then afterwards say that we forgive them? And he said, you have to think about the country. Do you think, he said, it would have been good for the country to have a civil war where we kill each other? Or is it better to let the black people know we have to believe in forgiveness? Yes, we were treated badly, but let's work together in the future. And when I heard that, I got chills in my body, and I almost had tears coming down my eyes, because this was so powerful. So he became kind of a mentor and an idol of mine. When I met President Gorbachev, it was the same thing. I did a talk show with him in Germany, right here in Germany, exactly. It was like in the early 90s. And he was talking to me about, I said to him, how could you do that? I said, how can anyone grow up under communism, and then when you get to the top position, you realize it doesn't work, and then go in the other direction and says we have to dismantle it. It's like, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? That's powerful. And so he became an idol of mine. So this is how it goes. You learn, you get to know people, and you get to know their reasons why they do certain things, and their conviction and all that stuff. So that is, I think, what motivates us. That's why I like to read about people and about, what makes them tick and stuff like that. That's why I learn, not just from mentors, but from average people. Sometimes you go in the gym and you talk to people about their struggles and all that stuff. I learn every day. So I think that's the key thing, is when you ask me about how do you find a mentor or idols or people that can help you, that's how I did it.
Thank you so much.
Last question and all that stuff. Let me just tell you one thing that I don't want to leave without saying. You at the university, you can study every book in the world. You can have the knowledge more than any computer. But there's one thing that you need more than anything, and that is vision. If you have no vision, where are you going, what you want to accomplish, who and what you want to be in the future, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there. Think about it. You can have the best airplane in the world, but if the pilot does not know where to go, eventually it's going to crash. And that's exactly what happens to people's lives. They crash. They get depressed. They have to take pills. And all of those things because they don't know where to go. They don't know what their vision is, what their future is, what they want to accomplish. It is so wonderful when you know where you want to go. I tell you, when I was 15 years old, I had a very clear picture of becoming Mr. Universe. Now, this is a huge goal, for a 15-year-old Austrian. Austria has never had anyone that became Mr. Universe. So it was an impossible dream. But I had a very clear vision. I remember Reg Park, who was a Mr. Universe in 1951 and in 1959, or 1958 and in 65. He won 3 times Mr. Universe. He was my idol. And so I studied how he trained. And I saw him becoming Mr. Universe with the age of 23 in England, in London. And at that very same stage, 5 years later, I became the youngest Mr. Universe ever. 5 years later, with 5 hours of training a day, even though my mother was freaking out that I was training too much, that I was too extreme and all that stuff. But that's what happened. Because I had a vision. There was no question about it. Every day I knew every rep that I did, every set I did, every weight I lifted was to get one step closer to make this vision of mine turn into reality. And on September 23rd, 1967, I became the youngest Mr. Universe ever. It was because of the vision. And ever since then, I realized that when I got into acting and they said, Arnold, you will never make it because you have an accent. There's no one that ever became a major international star leading man with an accent. Then they say, with this body, it's overdeveloped. What do you want with this body? I mean, you're so muscular, you weigh 250 pounds. He says that the new sex idols are, and sex symbols are like Al Pacino, Dustin Hoffman, Woody Allen. This is the 70s, they said. This is the 70s. This is not the 60s where they made Hercules movies, no. So, I mean, I listened to all of that, but I saw myself that I would be a leading man. And sure enough, a few years later, 1980, I was doing Conan the Barbarian. And they put $20 million into that budget, which is today like $150 million. And Universal Studio was doing it. Dino De Laurentiis, one of the most incredible producers, produced it. And he was very funny, Dino, because he had this Italian accent. Schwarzenegger, you're Conan. So this is how I would talk. When I said to him, I said, Dino, what is the secret to success? He says, oh, in Italy we have the 3 C's. A cavallo, cuore, di coglione. So he would talk like that. Very funny guy. But anyway, I learned a lot. He was one of my mentors also, may I remind you. But anyway, so this is the bottom line. I mean, I had a very clear vision, and sure enough, it worked out. And the same thing was when I was running for governor. When they said it's impossible and all this, I had a clear vision of what I wanted to do with the state. And because I had this clear vision, I was able, without a speech, no speech written down. Yeah, I gave speeches written down because there were certain things they wanted me to say, but I mean, the real thing from the heart, I knew what I wanted to do with California. And I explained it and shared it with the people, went up and down the state, left and right. I gave speeches everywhere. And the people bought in. They said, he knows what he wants to do. I like that. At least we have a direction. This is the direction that we're going to go. So this is the bottom line. So have vision. Have vision. That is the most important thing. Have vision. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you.